Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and this is a tutorial on MySQL and on creating databases and tables and just doing some very basic queries in MySQL. So I'm going to assume that you've already got a MySQL database server installed, and you could connect to it in various ways. And for the purposes of these tutorials, I'm going to be using the free MySQL Workbench here. So when you start MySQL Workbench, there's a list of instances you can connect to, and here's my local MySQL that I've installed on my PC. So I'm going to just double click that to connect to it, and that will bring up this editor where I can issue MySQL commands and get results back. So you can see on the left there the two kind of databases that I've created so far, but I'm going to show you how to get information just using pure SQL, which is often very useful. So the first and most useful command perhaps is show databases, and you can optionally terminate that with a delimiter character, which is the semicolon, although here it's not actually necessary. But most of the time I'm going to stick that semicolon on the end because I feel it's kind of good practice. And if you're using a console to issue SQL commands, you will need that semicolon most of the time. So to execute this show databases command, you can either hit Control and Return in the workbench, or just hit this lightning icon, and if you're on the console you just hit the return button here. So I'll click the lightning icon, and here I've got a list of my databases. So you can see there are two databases here that I've created myself, student and test, and there are also some built-in databases related to how MySQL works itself. So let's go ahead and create a new database, and the command for that is equally simple. It's create database, and then I have to give my database a name, and I'm going to call my database shop, because I thought we could do some kind of modeling based on a shop in future tutorials. So if I run that, hitting Control and Return, I've created my database, and to see that database I can say show databases again, and I do Control and Enter, and now you can see shop is there. And now I want to actually use my shop database and work with it, and the way I do that is I say use database. Actually no, I don't. I say use and the database name, use shop, like that. So use shop and execute that, and now I can see what tables are in my database, and there aren't going to be any, but let's have a look anyway. So very simple again, it's show tables, like that, and if I run that you can see it says tables in shop, and there aren't any tables there. But let's actually create a table. So far we've seen create database such and such, and use such and such, and show tables, and now we actually want to create a table. So to do that, I'll say create table, and let's create a table called maybe customer. So I'll give it a name, customer, and this is going to be a table of the customers that I have somehow mysteriously registered in my shop. Let's say it's an online shop and people kind of log in and create accounts for themselves or whatever. In fact, I'll call it customers, maybe that's nicer. And the next thing you need is you need a list of columns that are going to be in your table. So of course if you have a table, even if it's on paper, you've got different columns in the table, and all the tables in our database consist of various columns. So I need to start a kind of an open and close round brackets like that, and I'll just put the semicolon at the end in there already. And here I can list the columns that I want to put into my customers table. And the first item of each entry is going to be a name. It's going to be the name of the column. So let's say that each customer has a surname. So we'll have surname like that. And I need to say what type of data is going to be in there. And I'm going to use something called varchar. And varchar lets you have some kind of string data that's of variable length. So I don't know how long the surname will be. So I could use a char type, which will give me a fixed kind of number of characters for that surname. But I only want to use as many characters as there actually are in the surname. So for that reason, I'm using varchar to be efficient. And after varchar, you specify in brackets the maximum length of the data that you'll have in there. And if you're going to have text that's more than 255 characters, then you could use the text type. But I'm going to imagine that a surname is going to be less than 255 characters. So I'll use varchar and I'll give it a maximum length of, let's say, 50. And if anyone has a surname of more than 50 characters, then that's kind of their problem. And I'll have another column in here as well. I'll put a comma in there, and I can have another column which will be first name. And let's also say that's going to be of type varchar. And first name, I don't know, let's say 30 characters. So I'll execute this with the lightning icon here. And you can see it's executed. I've got a green kind of thing down here, so there's no problem. And now I can look at that table, and to see the tables that are in your database, you can say simply show tables. So again, very simple. And I execute this, and you can see I've now got one table in my shop database, and it's called customers. And to view that table, well, supposing I want to see what the structure of that table is, I can say desk, which is short for describe, and space and the name of the table, so desk customers, and I hit Control and return, and you can see I've got the fields in that are surname and first name, and they are both allowed to be null. So I'm going to demonstrate very quickly here how to insert some data into that table, and then how to retrieve it. But I'm going to go through it really quickly, and then we'll look at it more in future tutorials. So to insert a first name and surname, I could say insert into, and the name of the table, which is customers, and open and close the round brackets like that, and in there I put the columns that I want to insert data into. So it's going to be first name, comma, surname, and then after that I say values, and then again in round brackets, and in quotes I can put a couple of strings to insert in. So let's say Joe, and then comma, and Smith, Joe Smith, and I execute that query, and you can see that there's been no problem with the query down here. And then to retrieve all the data that's currently in that table, I can say select star from customers, and that's going to retrieve all columns and all data from the table. And here we go. So I've got Smith and Joe in my table, and of course I could do that insert statement again to add more data into that table if I wanted to. But that's all for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to take a look, a bit more of an advanced look at what you can do in terms of inserting data into tables and different data types and querying tables. So join me again next time, and until then, happy coding.